Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for coming along today. Just quickly before I start, I picked up my Virgin Australia magazine on the flight. I don't usually look at these because I'm not in the market for an overpriced watch, but in particular there was 4 pages in this magazine on sustainability, and I don't particularly like that word either, but it was interesting to note that the words in here about sustainability, where we're heading, mentioned infrastructure, planning, water, energy and connectivity. Not one mention of waste and resource recovery or remanufacturing. So I think we still need to do a little bit more to make sure our industry is on the agenda. So talk to, amongst yourselves, to your regional groups, your councils in the industry, talk to WAMA, AORA, WACRA, whoever you want to talk to. We just need to get our industry profile up a little bit more. That's my rant. So where we're headed with this talk today, Emma and I will guide you through some introductions and some background. Really what we wanted to do was talk to you about how we did a benchmarking project, why we did it, what some of the difficulties were, what some of the learnings were, and how perhaps you might apply it to your own industry. This is going smooth. Thanks. That one that I pressed? Don't press that one. All right, so just quickly, this is about us. So Wasteways, we're a local government subsidiary. So basically we're a not-for-profit owned by 6 councils in South Australia. So we pick up around about 200,000 bins, curbside bins per week. Owned by the 6 councils, they're equal shareholders. So basically it's like a regional waste group that you might see in New South Wales or Victoria, except they've put this one together to run wheels. Basically that's a very busy slide, but what I intended to do with it was just to show we do provide a lot of services. The councils have the option to opt in and out of certain services. So for instance, we have an at-call hard waste service that we offer to councils, which 4 of them take up and 2 of them don't. And likewise some other stuff. We've just ventured into education and promotion. We see a huge opportunity in our industry for behaviour change, and we as an industry or as an organisation want to be a part of that. So why benchmark? Basically, when I started thinking about doing this, as we are a not-for-profit, we're a local government subsidiary, our councils don't often have the ability to go and test the market. So when I came into this role as the general manager, I wanted to give the councils and the board some sort of input into, are we providing value for money? It's very difficult to do unless you go through a competitive tender process. So what we wanted to do was basically look at our current efficiencies, our current costs and our drivers, and then go out and engage an independent expert, in this case it's Arcadis, to go and gather some data and basically baseline our costs against the industry. Just on that, and I think we'll touch on it a little bit later, but I can see some real value in benchmarking, and the example that popped into my head was perhaps if you're looking at your contract extensions. So you've got a commercial contractor, there might be a +3 or +5 on the back end of your contract, and you're umming and ahhing, okay, are we going to engage and are we going to enact the +3? At that point in time, you might want to go out and do some benchmarking to say, okay, is our current contractor providing value for money? I think there's a real, some real value in doing this sort of process around about that time.
Thanks, Adam. First up, I just want to apologise for my voice, and it's not just an indication of how good a night I had last night. I've actually got a bit of a cough, so hopefully I'll get through this. But yeah, I guess that brings us to the question of what exactly is benchmarking? Well, it's a really useful evaluation tool, especially for organisations such as East Waste or indeed any other waste contractor that might be trying to prove how competitive they are, both in terms of prices charged and service efficiency, things like that. So it's commonly undertaken by a third party, so that's where Arcadis came in. And the first step involves deciding what aspects of performance you want to measure. So I'm going to refer to these as performance measures. In the case of waste collection, the common ones are, of course, bin lift rates and number of bin lifts per hour. The next step involves collating all the relevant data for the primary organisation. So this involved Adam entrusting his data to me. And then you need to source reliable data from competitors, so in order to form an industry benchmark. And that can be the challenging part, and I'll come back to that later. And once you've established the organisation's performance and an industry benchmark, then you can start to make meaningful comparisons and begin to analyse the results. So, why is this process useful? Well, it essentially shows whether an organisation, such as Wasteways, is performing stronger or weaker than their competitors. And that's obviously really useful information for management. And a really useful aspect is that you can use the results to pinpoint particular areas that might need to be improved. And the end goal that you're focused on in the study is obviously performance improvement. So taking a closer look at the Wasteways project, in this case we needed to look at performance on a council level because Wasteways customers are councils. And an initial challenge that we faced was that it can be really difficult to compare council waste data side by side because they all differ a lot in the level of service that they offer. So some have 3-bin service, some have 2-bin, and maybe the size of the council area might be vastly different. Often regional areas aren't serviced, so the differences can be pretty huge. So we tried to get around that, first of all, by breaking the collection costs down as far as possible into individual performance measures. So I've listed the performance measures that we looked at in this benchmarking study, so obviously annual cost of collection, but we looked at them by stream, so MSW recycling and, in this case, food and garden organics, so the FOGO. Bin lift cost rates we looked at, also bin lifts per hour, and each of those by waste stream. We also looked at maintenance costs and maintenance time per truck, because Wasteways had pretty good data on that. And then what we tried to do was we tried to seek out councils of a similar setting to the Wasteways members. So in terms of the size of the councils, the population density, and we also favoured metropolitan councils because Wasteways councils are metropolitan. So the second major challenge was the biggie, the classic data dilemma. We need lots of data and it's highly sensitive data. So how to convince other councils to share their data with us? Well, over the years I've gotten pretty good at sweet-talking people into giving me their data, but I realised that wasn't going to be quite enough in this situation. So we turned our request into an offer, and luckily Adam was open to this. The offer being that for any data that councils shared, we would share back Waste's data in return. And we found a lot of councils were quite receptive to this. It became a bit of a win-win for them because, councils were basically really interested to see how their collection data matched up to Waste data.
And just another note on the data, Emma, as well, is that we made a commitment early on, and obviously Arcadis were not going to provide the raw data that they obtained from other councils directly to the client. So we thought that was very clear, and we made that clear.
Yeah, we made that, sorry, I should point that out as well. We made it clear that their identity wouldn't be shown to Waste, so we concealed their identity. Waste didn't get everyone's raw data.
Yep.
So how did Waste measure up in this benchmarking exercise? Well, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just going to show a selection of the results. But bin lift rates are a common performance measure in the waste industry, arguably one of the better indicators of operational efficiency. So just looking at their MSW collections first, Waste performed pretty well on this one. On average, their bin lift rates were slightly cheaper than the benchmark that we determined, so by a few cents. But you can actually see that on this graph, for most of their member councils, they were actually very competitive. So they were below the benchmark or on par with the benchmark for 4 of the member councils. Adelaide Hills Shire was a bit of a different case. Some higher rates were achieved there, but Adelaide Hills Shire is the outer metropolitan council, and it's a much bigger area, much lower population density. So that really started to come through in the study. And I
see that consistently in the slides, that because that's a more regional council, you know, productivity, you have longer runs and less utilisation. So that was a pretty common theme and something we had to explain clearly to the board and the councils.
Yep, so I think Adam was slightly expecting this result, but yeah, it definitely came out clear in the data. So then, looking at the recycling collection, so again, Wasteways performed pretty well. They were a bit more expensive on this one than the benchmark, but still within about 13 cents. And again, yeah, you can see that Adelaide Hills Shire moderately, well, quite a bit more expensive there. Organics collection, so it was a bit harder to source data on that one. It's just not a common service, the food and garden organics. But we did manage to get some data on that, and East Waste was below the industry average for 3 of their member councils there, so within about 10 cents, so performed pretty well. And I just wanted to show this graph. I know it's very hard to read, but it just shows a bit more of the detail that we were able to provide in East Waste's report, and also just shows that we were very careful to conceal all of the council's data, so we just referred to them as Council 1, Council 3. But it was really interesting, so we ranked the data by population density because we thought that would have quite an impact on the costs, and definitely you can see the trend in this one. So this data is less sensitive, so I can actually show you some results. Bin lifts per hour, East Waste did pretty well on this one as well. So when you look at the average, they were averaging about 163 lifts per hour for MSW collection, but you can see again they were influenced by the Adelaide Hills Shire, so much lower lifts per hour in that shire, but when you take that data point out, they were actually doing about 178 lifts per hour, which is very close to the industry benchmark of 180 lifts an hour. And having had a go with the truck outside, I can now see how hard it would be to reach that kind of, you know, that many lifts an hour. So anyway, I'm even more impressed with this stat. So in summary, East Waste performed pretty well against most of the industry benchmarks, particularly bin lifts per hour for MSW collections. Possibly, I didn't show any of the graphs on this, but possibly some higher maintenance times than other councils. And yeah, it just really came out that generally higher costs and a less efficient service happening in the Adelaide Hills Shire. So I guess that was one of our key recommendations, was to perhaps develop a bit of a more tailored approach for Adelaide Hills Shire and try to bring some of those costs down. We also recommended improving bin lifts per hour for recycling and FOGO collections. So East Waste have pretty good data on GPS tracking, so yeah, we recommended maybe a bit of an analysis of that and looking at optimising some of their routes, try and save a bit of time there. We also recommended perhaps looking at compaction rates and whether some improved density, load densities could, and yeah, also some further analysis of maintenance times and workshop activities. I'll hand back over to Adam now.
Yeah, so this was a really useful process and really good timing in terms of our strategic planning cycle for East Waste. So we were currently doing our 10-year strategy and our 1-year annual plan and our budget. So this piece of work allowed us to really dig in and change some of our operations and put it into our strategic plan. So the main two main things we've implemented from the benchmarking process. One was we initiated a sub-depot for Adelaide Hills. So now we host our vehicles up at Adelaide Hills within their council depot. That saves us 1.5 hours per truck, so times 5 in unproductive travel time. We knew we were a little bit heavy in that service, but this benchmarking process just dug in and gave us the ammunition we needed to make the decision. So we're looking at on track to save that council around about $130,000 a year. The second one was the devil you know. So we looked at bulking up our recyclables in a transfer station. So it's the old adage of, you know, you got to handle it, double handling, there's a cost there. But we looked at productivity and the opportunity cost of not doing it, and it looks like it's going to pay off. So now we're bulking up recyclables and in a transfer station and taking them to the processing facility. So they were two real key critical operational things that we needed some ammunition to make those decisions and to get the board's buy-in to make those decisions. And this benchmarking process enabled us to do that. The other thing we did is we touch our trucks a lot more now. So we do a 100-hour walkover and a 400-hour service instead of the old service schedule that we were doing. So again, just giving us that decision-making information that we needed. We're going to repeat the process in 16-17, so in the coming financial year, once we have initiated those efficiency measures, and we're hoping to see some of those, especially around the Adelaide Hills and one of the other councils, trim up quite a bit. Moral of the story?
Yeah, so I guess moral of the story, data can be difficult to source, but there's opportunities for collaboration and data sharing, which we were very encouraged by. A lot of councils very willing to share their data. And it can be a really valuable tool, gives you an insight into the current best practice in your industry, and a better understanding of your own organisation's performance, which is pretty invaluable. Yeah, and just also identifying specific areas for improvement and, yeah, opportunities to lower costs and improve efficiency, and I'm sure we're all after that.
Yeah, and even just through the process, just having, because you're in your business every day, you're looking at it every day, to have someone fresh come in and just talk it through and look at your cost drivers was invaluable, so definitely worthwhile exercise. Thanks a lot.